Adam is holding up the review that I will be doing, Fool's Blade. That's not Fool's Blade 5, by the way. It just is the way that the box is designed. So I'm
That
going
does
to touch
look
on this
good.
first because it's clear if you're watching this. It is a weird ass box shape. And some people love it or hate it. I think it's a very kind of display piece. Oh, it's a sword box, and there's a thing that comes out that we're really not sure still what it's for. I guess you could store
Yep.
some of the cards in there, but so this card game it's very much a Munchkin as take that game, fighting other people to design and create the best sword and fight monsters with it. There's multiple decks of cards. So you've got like the Forge deck, the Adventure deck, the Tavern deck, the Quest decks. I think there's 6 or 8 decks in all. And so you start out with the handle of the sword. And then you can build on to the pommel and the crossguard and the blade itself. And each of them will have different powers and strengths. There's sort of a rock, paper, scissors aspect of like green, blue, red. One will do 0 damage to one, but like double damage to another. And you'll fight monsters that will do different things, and you can come up with like set bonuses as well. And as you go an adventure, you get loot pieces, and loot pieces end up being worth a certain amount of money, or sometimes it's an actual like epic sword piece. In one of our games, I managed to collect like the legendary sword, and it was just busted. Like it was meant to, it's hard to get it, but like I just got the cards and it did so much damage. And like it just let me add rolls and re-roll, and I absolutely slaughtered Adam in that game. So like one of those things that like when you're winning, it feels great. Can't imagine it feels as great when like the other one's like, oh yeah, of course you're beating the crap out of me because you have the legendary and you can make different one. Like each time you assemble the decks, you can get the different ones. The one I had was like all about rolling dice. So being a lifetime D&D player, it was really cool to be like, oh, I add a D20 to this or I add a D6. It's by Circle Tunes HD is the publisher, and Christian Brantley is the designer. 2 to 4, 40 to 80 minutes. I honestly think it's a little bit longer than that because it's kind of one of those munchkin-y games that if you start getting into the take that and breaking people's swords and stuff, it's going to be a little bit longer of the game. So you got dice and card game, deck construction. There's apparently over 30,000 different absurd sword combinations in the game.
I can see that.
It's crazy, and I'll keep referring to Munchkin because obviously they were heavily influenced by that game. When you go to fight a monster, sometimes if you lose to that monster, it's just gonna kill you. Then you lose all of your stuff. And another time you'll have to discard a piece of loot or various different ones. And the green is like what you'll get if you defeat it. They're worth points at the end as well. And it'll show like the green. If you have you're fighting the guy with the 11 blue. If you're using the green, you're stronger towards him. But if you're using the red, you're weaker. And it's a very interesting game. It looked super complex. Like the first time we busted it out, and we just weren't feeling it. We're like, yeah, no. There's 6 different decks and all these different turn phases. So I would say that if you're teaching it to somebody, make sure that you're both in the headspace of like, all right, this is going to take us a little while to teach and to digest. I'm sure once you get to playing it and you play it over and over, it's going to play different every time. It's going to be unique. Whereas like the Munchkin, to me, if you're not playing with different sets, it's just going to be the same thing over and over, and everybody's going to get to like level 9, and you're just kind of like gonna wait around. Whereas I felt this one had a much more distinct ending to it. You couldn't as much affect other people. There was the tavern phase where you would play cards on each other and but then they could play cards on you. There's a set of dice that you would have to roll for certain things. They're all color coded, I believe, too, to the sides. So if you're somebody like Adam that doesn't have as much experience with knowing what a D8 looks like versus a D10, the answer to that is one's angular and one's more rounded.
One's orange and one's yellow in there.
You are going to need a good amount of space for this between all of the decks and like building out your sword and everything. So make sure you're not playing it in a limited space area. Anything else that you want to add, Adam?
And yeah, it's an interesting game. Like he said, it plays like Munchkin. Every turn you go into a tavern, you get a tavern card. That's when you can sort of play cards against other people, and everyone's involved in that turn, which is nice too. So it may be Gary's turn, but if I have a tavern card, I can play a card during that turn. So you're always involved in every turn. then it's up to them on what they do. They can go to the forge to help build their sword more. They can just quest where they draw random cards, but the cards may be good cards like gear, or it could be a curse that hurts them. There's also an option to then go ahead and go monster hunting. So you could go to a certain monster hunting deck. There was 3 decks. One was easy, medium, and hard. And then you could decide to try to go that depending on how strong your sword was. And you're collecting loot, you're getting points for killing the monsters, things like that. There was like a boss phase 2 where there was co-op for the boss because the boss would block everything. You couldn't do anything until the boss was defeated. Every time I ran into the boss, we could not defeat it. So I don't know if we were just not teaming up well together, or it seemed to always happen after we did something take that. Like I would break someone's blade, and then all of a sudden it would be like, oh, now there's a boss. And I'm like, well, that's cool because now we can't defeat the boss. They were really hard to try to defeat. So, and again, there's always a penalty for losing against any monster or any boss. And you're just collecting loot over and over again. I do like the fact that it did have a change on if you wanted to play a shorter game, you could take out certain cards from the loot deck because once you hit the end of the loot deck, that's the end of the game. So you could cut the game in half by having less legendary weapons and less loot in there. And then that would obviously speed up the game. So that was nice because it did play longer than I think it should with a game like this. But I think that's also why we talk about Munchkin a lot because so does Munchkin. I like Munchkin, but it gets to the point where everyone's about to win and then there's so much take that then it's like, okay, when is this going to end? This has that similar feel where someone builds up a sword and then everyone starts going, oh my god, they're getting really strong, let's everyone break their sword and mess with them, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, now they can't do anything, but everyone else now has to build back up too. So yeah, I don't know Circle Tunes HD. I know it's an online comic, and I know it's fairly popular, and they wanted to make a game. It seemed like that's a big thing doing now with whether it was what Exploding Kittens with the oatmeal and things like that. I don't know enough about the comic. I don't know if it has to do with questing and things like that, if it's a joke on that. But this does seem like a very, I wouldn't say a very complex game, but like Gary said, it's going to take a longer game. There's going to be a lot of questing. It's a lot of choices of do I want to go after the monster? Do I want to go build my sword? It seems very much like an RPG feeling to it. But as we all know, RPGs are not short. So I don't know if this is a game that someone was interested in the comic and then they're like, oh, I want to know a game now. Is this something that I can quickly pick up? Well, no. Like Exploding Kittens is great because if you have an Exploding Kitten, play a diffuse card. Do you have a diffuse card? Cool, you're dead. Moving on. So it's something simpler. This seems more complex. If you're into that, great. If you like Munchkin, this is better than Munchkin. I like this better than Munchkin. Oh yeah. So I'm not a huge fan of Munchkin, but if I was going to play a Munchkin type game, I would probably play this before I'd play a Munchkin game. That being said, I don't like playing any Munchkin games, so it's very difficult to get me to play any game like that. If I was going to, though, I like this because, again, it gives you more choice. It's not just kick open the door, pull this card. It's, do you want a quest? Okay, no, you don't want a quest? Fine. Do you want to build your sword? Building your sword is fun. When you grab a piece and you're like, oh, this piece works perfectly with the one I had, like Gary said, he was able to build the legendary sword, and he's like, okay, well, oh, I lost. Oh, wait, I get to roll this. Oh, that didn't help me. Oh, but I also get to roll this now. And I was like, okay, so you're at some point you're going to just win because you're going to roll something that helps you. And he's like, yep, I just won. Okay, cool. And I was like, great. So it's fun when you build that. The only thing is, I think the catch up mechanic, there's not really there. So it's fun when when it's winning, but it's the only way you can sort of catch up is to destroy their stuff and then sort of try to build your stuff at the same time, which is not easy to do. If you're attacking one person and trying to pull them down, it's hard to pull yourself up because, you're using your time to beat them down. But yeah, it's on the brink of honestly walk away or play. I would not play an unshortened version of this game. Knowing the game now, I'd be perfectly fine. But like, let's say 6 months down the road and I forget how to play it and everything, and trying to relearn it and knowing that it wasn't my favorite game, it would be hard for me to bring this to the table. If someone was a huge Circle Tunes fan and was like, "Oh my gosh, that's their game. I've always wanted to play it." I would obviously play it with them and show them the game, but it's not something I'm going to be reaching for anytime soon.
It's a
What
play
about
for
you?
me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I played Munchkin long ago. It was one of the early board games from Steve Jackson Games and all that. I
yeah,
enjoyed it. Like you said, I think I would stick still with the shorter game. People that know our podcast and people that know me, I like the shorter games. I'd rather play 3 games in 3 hours than one 3 hour game.
yeah,
But I think it fits a nice niche of getting that Munchkin sort of mechanics to it, but it's not just everybody gets to max level and then you're waiting for everybody to run out.
yeah.
Your turns feel more impactful, and overall, I like the art and the quality. It felt like an RPG, but you didn't have to have somebody running the game.
Yeah, it gave you that, like, little JRPG feel to it, absolutely. I just feel like it was too in between for me. It was not heavy enough to be, like, a really cool, thinky game, and it wasn't laid back enough for this to just be like, "Oh, it's a fun game and your decisions don't matter." So, your decisions matter, but something wacky could also happen, and I felt bad. There was at one point in one of the games I played, I destroyed someone's blade, and then they just could not get a new blade if their life depended on it, and they couldn't do anything almost all game, and then they just sat there being like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the forge again. No, I didn't get a blade. I'm gonna go to the forge again. Oh, I didn't get a blade." And I was like, "That sucks." So that I feel like just like a game that has player elimination, which honestly most games don't nowadays, it was almost a version of that
Right.
where they really couldn't do anything, and I think that was maybe what soured me on the game more than anything. But
Mhm.
uh, again, if you like Munchkin, this would be your replacement for Munchkin. I'm just not a huge Munchkin fan.